It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA. Here's Kevin Doran.
It's Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran today, on with former ABC correspondent Tom Osborne, who's now at USUN Report. Tom Osborne, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Brian. It's a pleasure to join you.
Well, Tom Osborne, the big debate is tonight on CNN. Here's the newest poll numbers from a CBS New York Times poll that came out Tuesday morning. Trump 27, Carson 23, Bush 6, Rubio 6, Huckabee 6, and Senator Ted Cruz 5. So Trump is still in the lead, followed closely by Ben Carson. Here's what Rush Limbaugh says about Trump's success. Rush says the media usually blames the Rush Limbaugh show for a Republican candidate being popular with the people. Rush says that he's not the one. Rush is not the one making Trump happen. The disillusionment with the Republican Party's leadership is. This is Rush Limbaugh, and here he's pretty much talking directly to the Beltway Republicans in Washington.
Nobody supporting Donald Trump thinks that he is Ronald Reagan. Nobody thinks that he is William F. Buckley Jr. Nobody thinks that he is me. Nobody thinks that he is conservative. Certainly not a Reagan conservative. And that's not why he is being supported. And thus, he is not harming conservatism or conservative principles because he's not redefining it. Because that's not why people support him. The reason Trump is being supported is that he is not you inside the Beltway. I hate this to sound so divisive, but we're not the ones that created this.
And obviously when Rush says you, he's talking to the Republican Party officials in Washington, D.C. Tom Osborne, what do you think of Rush's take there?
Well, I think he's exactly right. I think he's right for both parties. I haven't seen this kind of upheaval in decades. The closest parallel I can remember is the opposition of Robert Kennedy against the Johnson administration's handling of the war, and then you had McCarthy in there, and also basically it's the same scenario where the United States has watched the Congress sort of fiddling away as Rome is burning, and that applies to both parties. And they are absolutely fed up with it. They're ringing alarm bells. They don't care who carries the message. They want them to get those people out of there and get something going. We've got too many problems, and it's only going to get worse. We can talk about that as we go along.
Sean Hannity is predicting that at tonight's CNN Republican debate that Trump is going to get hit with a lot of hard questions from the other candidates. Ann Coulter was on the Sean Hannity show this week, and he suggested that the following would be a bunch of questions, and then Ann Coulter answered the questions as she would, starting out here with Sean Hannity.
Now, what do you say? Because the big criticism that I would argue and I would predict for Wednesday that I think all the candidates are going to gang up on Trump.
Of course.
I think they're angry that he has sustained his numbers in the polls and actually is surging. So my question is, when they attack him for his changed positions, for once being a Democrat, for donating to Hillary, being part of the problem by buying politicians, what do you think the answer should be?
Well, I'm sure he will come up with a fantastic answer.
I'm asking what you think it should be.
But what I would say, I mean, not speaking as him, but speaking on his behalf here, there is one consistent strain throughout Donald Trump's life. I also tweeted out an article about when he saved a family farm that had been in the family for like 5 generations. It's such a touching story. It'll make you cry. This was back in 1986, and the quote he gave at the time, they flew up for Christmas Day, burned the mortgage in the lobby of Trump Towers and had dinner with his family, and the father of the family farm had committed suicide hoping the insurance money would save the family farm. It was an incredibly sad story, and Trump saved his day. And the quote he gave at the time, this is back in 1986, was, we send millions of dollars to foreign farmers, but we don't help our own American farmers. I saw an interview with him. Also, I tweeted out Donald Trump being interviewed by Larry King. I think it's the 1988 Republican National Convention. He's introduced as a Republican. Talks about one of the things that I thought was interesting was that he said he had just come from a speech Dan Quayle gave. And no matter what King would ask him about, he just kept coming back to. And boy, that Dan Quayle was very impressive. Moreover, I just saw a big ad Donald Trump took out. The date is smudgy. I don't know if this is going around the internet. I'm about to tweet it out. From, I think it was May 1990, coming out for, supporting the police on the death penalty and saying no one is going to be safe without secure communities. One thing, he spoke when we were the only two speakers at the March 2013 CPAC who spoke against amnesty. Every other speaker at the alleged Conservative Political Action Committee was pro-amnesty.
Tom Osborne, what do you think of Hannity's predictions of what the candidates will say and what Ann Coulter thinks Trump should say back tonight?
Well, I think she's on target again. There's going to be a lot of talk about I'm against this and I'm for that and I'm for this and these people are against me. But these are sort of simple solutions to complex problems.
This is Trump in Dallas Monday night talking about immigration. Audio here from NBC.
We have to stop illegal immigration. We have to do it. We have to do it.
And that went over very well down in Dallas. Immigration, you see that helping his Trump's immigration statements? You think that will help him in the border states?
I think it will. Sure. It has a certain audience, of course, because there's people who live there, and the borders are not secure because we have opportunities that people over the border do not. And there's plenty of illegal people in this country. We know that by the millions. Estimates are about 12 million. And I don't think anyone who assumes the presidency is going to begin deporting those people. I mean, even in 8 years, they couldn't even cut a fraction of that. So Obama has deported a lot of people, but that's not the answer. The answer is we have to figure out a way to work together. It's a foreign policy issue. It's the same thing as you see all these refugees running away from terrible situations, trying to get to Europe. This is only the beginning, and we're looking at the whole world is in this upheaval right now.
How do you think that voters in the other states, the states that are not border states, how do you think that voters in those states will react to Trump's immigration ideas?
I think they're probably more sympathetic. They think and remember that those people out there, say in the Midwest, in the farming areas, they had the Irish and they had the Germans and they had the Swedes, and a lot of those people out where I went to college out in South Dakota, they still have a little bit of that Swedish accent. Those people remember what it was like to come to this country, and they know what it's like to get a farm and to make it work and to be an American and to climb the ladder of success. There are moments when we've taken immense amounts of immigrants and immense amounts of refugees.
Ben Carson told CNN that he was skeptical about the refugee situation, about taking them into the United States, because he's a little wary of terrorists sneaking in.
Unless we improved it very, very substantially to the point where we could virtually guarantee that we were not importing terrorists, it seems to me like an inappropriate thing to do at this stage. When in fact, we have countries over there who are refusing to take in refugees. This doesn't make any sense to me that we should have to do it and they're not taking in refugees from their own area. Why should we have to do it?
How do you think that's going to play?
Not well. It's not that it's inappropriate for us to do that. I don't know where you came up with that word. It's very appropriate for us to do that. The equivalent of the population that Germany is taking in, almost 800,000, is equivalent to us taking in 3.5 million.
Talking with Tom Osborne here on Wednesday morning, on the morning of the big Republican debate, the second debate. Last one was on Fox. This one will be on CNN. More with Tom Osborne in just a moment. Back on the Newsmaker show, Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran. Today we're on with former ABC correspondent Tom Osborne, who's now with US-UN Report. Tom Osborne, in the last segment you talked about, you mentioned Syria. You follow the international scene quite closely. Wonder if you can bring us up to snuff there.
Sure, and Brian, it's absolutely related to what we're talking about in terms of principle and the ways that we've been raised in this country and tradition. I mean, there can't be a person on the face in this country that hasn't seen the thousands of children's faces and mothers trying to get their children on trains. I mean, this brings back really bad memories. So we know that whatever we're doing as a world population is not working. And the United Nations has stepped in, and we've got the European community working on trying to establish quotas. That's not the ideal, but at least we're going to share the burden. We have to share this burden. If we all take some of these refugees in and help them out, it will be a minor task for every country, and everybody should, as a member state of the United Nations, be obligated to do this. I think the most important thing, though, is the movement we see by Russia. This is both a threatening possibility to the United States and the world, because they're moving military into areas where we are flying aerial missions and dropping bombs. And of course, if this continues, we will not always know where Russian troops are. And once, as things go along, it's quite possible that we could be bombing Russian installations. We've made lots of mistakes. All of us have, all over the world. With this surgical bombing, it could get us into some really awful problems. But the bottom line is, it is the same principle in terms of refugees that we've always had in this country. And there is a difference, I should mention, between migrants and refugees. Refugees are fleeing anguish. They're fleeing suffering. They're fleeing the discrimination that's happening in their country, the war and the war crimes of the Assad government, dumping chemical weapons on neighborhoods of children and women and families. And they have no place to go, so it's time to open up those European borders, and the United States also has to join in and take care of these people until we get a political solution. But let me just add very quickly that the Russian entrance is a good thing in this sense, that they are moving in, establishing their place in the region, and therefore making themselves part of a political solution. And I think that's really what's behind the scenes now. And I've checked with a lot of sources, and one in particular is a very, very significant American source who tells me who has told me at least a year ago that he understands that Russia in the end will not stand by Assad. So they're moving their way into a political agreement, and everybody's laying down their markers. But we think from good intelligence that if we get to the point where we have a political solution and it means that Assad has to go, the Russians will not balk at that. So that's good news. I hope it's true.
Tom Osborne, looking at a headline here from BBC News. The West ignored Russian offer in 2012 to have Assad step aside from Syria leadership. Your thoughts there?
Well, I have read that, and it quite possibly could be true. We had a lot of difficulties with Russia, and there's people who are Putin watchers, and sometimes he likes to set up these board games in the international scene, and it probably was a suspect offer that might have brought Russian troops in at a time when we were trying to keep them out in other places, like the eastern Ukraine. So I suspect at the time it was not an offer that was taken seriously. I think now Russia could very well be very serious about this political settlement possibility, but we're going to have to let them sort of play out propaganda. It's not going to look good for a while, but I think eventually it could come together. There's a lot of really very influential people from all over the world working on this as a political settlement.
You know, a lot of people think that Obama is incredibly popular with all the Arabs and the opposite with Israel. But this is kind of an interesting, eye-opening article. There's an article here on Al Jazeera, how Barack Obama betrayed the Syrian people by refusing to confront Assad and supporting the opposition that gave way to the events that led to the rise of ISIL. So I don't think Obama is incredibly popular with all parts of the Middle East, at least with Al Jazeera. Your thoughts there, Tom Osborne?
Well, everybody knows that lots of offers have been made in the name of we're the rebels that will take down Assad. And I don't know anyone yet who has properly identified enough of those that you could come up with a handful of people that have been vetted that you would trust to fight alongside our allies in that struggle in Syria. So I think probably the move was basically just was not believed to be sincere.
New York Post headline: Putin's latest laugh at Obama's claim of respect. And the New York Post article goes on to say that much to President Barack Obama's apparent astonishment, Putin has just called off his latest bluff in Syria. And by all accounts, President Obama has no idea what to do about it. The Post says they understand Obama's shock at the last laugh. Excuse me. Just last June, it says, to be boasted, once again, the United States is the most respected country on the earth. It appears that Obama's getting it from all sides these days.
Yeah, he is getting it from all sides, and that's because he's doing the difficult lifting that most presidents find to be unpopular and don't want to risk getting into. I mean, let's be honest, he's gotten himself into every major issue facing this country. He's left nothing, no stone unturned. And anyone who does those unpopular things and gets the sort of what you call, let's say, the foundational work working toward a peaceful or political solution takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And if you listen to any diplomats, they can tell you and attest to the fact that the United States is very much involved in finding a political solution. It may not come in time for the president to get credit, just as the development of his health care program has a lot of critics. He always has said it will take time. I think he's one of those presidents that is like Harry Truman. He's going to go out with low numbers, or let's say average numbers. But I think in a couple of years, he'll be way up there.
Talking with Tom Osborne here. A final question for you, Tom Osborne. We've been talking a little bit about Obama there. Who will his successor in the Democratic Party be? And I don't mean necessarily the next president, but do you see it going to the Democratic nomination? Do you see it going to Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders? Obviously, Biden and Hillary's numbers are much higher. Hillary higher than Biden. What are your thoughts there, Tom?
Well, I think Biden would be a fantastic candidate now. He wouldn't have been in the past. It wouldn't have happened any other time, I think, in his life, and I think it's what he's looking at, you know. And, of course, he's worked with the Clintons. He knows Hillary, and it's always painful to have those kinds of races. I don't think I would rule him out, but on the other hand, I definitely would not rule out Hillary yet. You know, after all the simple solutions and the roaring crowds, it's all going to come down probably to a major world crisis right in our lap during the middle of the election next year, I suspect. And people are going to have to fine-tune their thinking. And they're going to say, do I really want this guy, you know, taking care of these problems or this woman? So I think everybody is going to have a serious jolt moment when they say, oh, wait a minute, now this guy or this woman is going to be president. And I think there's that moment of truth when people say, I don't think so. And we're all going to be a little bit surprised.
Who do you see the Republican nominee being at the end of the day?
I would put my money on Kasich. I think he's the answer to all of the Republican Party's problems. He's got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. He's got enough energy to embarrass Trump if he has to. And I think, hey, let's watch this debate. Because I think Kasich could be the one who has enough credibility to make Trump look silly. It's not enough to get a one-liner in. That goes away in a day or two. We all have a good laugh. It's another thing to have the very substantive responses, which I think a candidate like Kasich can, and he's the kind of guy who can also influence and inspire Democrats too.
We've been talking with Tom Osborne, USUN Report, formerly with ABC. Any final thoughts before we go on tonight's debate, Tom?
Well, only that I would like to talk to you after the debate. How's that? And we'll see what happens in terms of our predictions.
All righty, that'd be great.
Thanks very much, Brian.
And thanks for joining us, Tom Osborne of USUN Report. Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Dorn on the Newsmaker Show, ABC Next on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell.